Welcome to the June 20th meeting of the Ames Community School District Board of Directors. Call the meeting to order and take approval of the agenda.
So moved. Second.
Moved by Rosser, second by Esposito. Discussion. Proceed to vote. All those in favor of the motion say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed say nay. Passes 5-0. Director Rosser, would you please read the mission statement?
The mission of the Ames Community Schools is to ensure that all learners develop the knowledge, skills, attitudes, values, and personal esteem necessary to grow in and shape a changing society.
Thank you. First item tonight, public hearing on the facilities and bus storage building. I will open the public hearing, and no one is signed to speak. Any comments to the office? No? Okay. I'll close the public hearing and take a motion.
I move the board award the contract for the 2016 Facilities Management and Bus Storage Building Project to Jensen Builders Limited, LTD, in the amount of $5,224,800 for the base bid and alternates 1 and 2.
Second.
Moved by Esposito, second by Rasmussen. Discussion.
I think one of the good pieces of information that came out of this, and Jerry's now grinning, is that we actually came in about 10% under what we had budgeted, which was pretty surprising, including both of the alternates. So it's really a good deal.
Can we highlight what the alternates are again for public? What the additions are?
Alternate 1 is radiant in-floor heat in the equipment maintenance area, and the other is concrete paving in all of the parking area, not some split of concrete and rock.
And, go ahead. And Jerry, timing on this? Okay. All right, any other discussion?
I don't know if your microphone would work, Jerry, but we're planning on June 1, completion date of next year, right?
Yes.
Okay.
Okay. See no further discussion. Vote on roll call.
Branson, aye.
Rosser, aye.
Rasmussen, aye.
Dierdorf, aye.
Esposito, aye.
Passes 5-0. Move on to the next item tonight, public forum. Anyone signed up?
Sign up.
Anyone signed up?
Blank.
Move on to the first discussion item, elementary reading update. Aaron and Mary.
And friends.
And friends.
Good evening. At the table, we have representatives from the different groups who have been working to update the word study. And so I think the first thing we'll do is we'll just pass the mic and you can introduce yourselves and your role.
Hello, Mary Morton, teacher on special assignment, in charge of areas including literacy, social studies, PE, and art.
I'm Erin Miller, also a teacher on special assignment for social studies, literacy, music, TTLs, and counseling.
Stephanie Troncoso, I teach kindergarten at Mitchell Elementary.
Sarah Davison, first grade, Sawyer.
Vanessa Jones, 5th grade at Sawyer.
And I'm Sue Lawler, building principal over at Sawyer, representing our building principals.
Justin Jess, principal over at Cape Mitchell.
And I would also like to acknowledge the rest of our elementary principal team. And I do think we've had some members of the Word Study team in the room with us this evening as well. So we appreciate all of them being here to join us. So just to kind of recap where we've been, the Word Study team, consisting of about 30 teachers from around the district, representing all grade levels and all buildings, have been meeting since January of 2016, so for about 6 months, where they've really been studying the research around phonemic awareness, phonics, spelling, and handwriting. And they've also conducted a gap analysis, which is where we are today as a result of their gap analysis, really understanding where we are with needs here in the district relative to some organization and commonality. So The word study team made the following recommendations then. First of all, they saw a need for a common scope and sequence. Even with the common core curriculum, our district was still at different places in terms of who was teaching what when. So the scope and sequence would address that particular area. Common assessments, even though we have a few in place, what are the formative assessments that inform day-to-day instruction? Additional professional development. We have spent numerous hours, thousands of man-hours literally, on professional development around comprehension, but they're identifying some additional gap areas as part of their gap analysis. As a result of that, they were looking for some common materials to supplement Tier 1 instruction around foundational skills, which led to our initial pilot proposal and the forthcoming revisions that have taken us to this point. At this point in time, let's talk about what those revisions might look like.
So on June 1st, Erin and I met with the word study team, and our work that day was to go through a process to help us identify how we wanted to move forward with our work next year. It was really important to all of us that we heard from everyone, that we had everyone's voice in the room as part of this conversation. The process helped us make sure that we had everyone's voice in the room. So we started by talking about 10 different options. What are all the different options of how we could move forward next year? Some of these options followed the recommendations that Dr. Ross just mentioned in the previous slide, and some of them didn't. It was important that we were transparent in providing here all of the options that we could possibly think of that we could have a conversation around. You'll notice that it says 10 options on there. We actually came into the room with 9 options, and the team designed a 10th option. So we considered all 10 of those options. We had chart paper on each of the options, and the teachers brainstormed some considerations and some benefits of each option. And then we had negotiations around each option and what we thought of each option.
So in our negotiations, it was important to be able to leave the room with one voice. So we used a consensus building strategy, the fist to 5, where a fist means, no, I can't leave and support this. I'm not going to be on board with it. And a 5 is, yes, I will come present to the school board with you. And so we were able to eliminate some choices because it was important to us that if there were fists in the room, that we not move forward with those choices. We wanted to make sure everybody was on board. And we went on the fist to 5 scale, we only moved forward with things that were rated a 3, which is I'm on board, a 4, which is I can help lead it, and 5 is like I want to be way out in front. And so we did that, and then we continued negotiations. We were hoping for about 2 to 4 recommendations to move forward to the building principals so that we could have some conversations with that group too. And so we have some members of the word study team here to share with you what their discussions were like and what their recommendations were.
Okay, well, we had some tough discussions to take place after some decisions we had made earlier. So what we talked about, again, like Mandy already discussed, but we had needed a common material. We needed something that was ready to use. We wanted consistency among classrooms and among our buildings. We needed a scope and sequence so we could come together as a PLC within our buildings and again across the district, that we were all on the same page looking at where our students were, catching those students who might be falling behind. And that's our third criteria, that we needed something that met the needs of all of our students.
Another decision that we came to was to move away from the idea of using a classroom or building pilot in order to maintain the most consistency for the students that we could. And in that thinking, we wanted to really trust the expertise established by our word study team to review and select the materials. And then again, we would like all pre-K through second grade teachers to have professional development around all the components of word study. So we did narrow it down to 2 plans. We have Plan H and Plan J.
Plan H includes summer 2016. Word study team reviews all materials and selects 1 to purchase. 2016-2017, all staff implement new materials with professional development for all staff. Plan J was 2016-2017 Common Professional Development for all staff, and the word study team reviews materials and selects one to purchase. 2017 to 2018, all staff implement the new materials.
So after the word study team met on June 1st, June 2nd, the very next day, we met with the administrative team. Aaron and I started the meeting with the principals and the administrative team around the same process that the word study team went through. We felt it was important for the administrative team not only to consider all the options, the same options that the word study team had considered, but also to experience the process so that they understood the work that the word study team had done and how they came up with these two recommendations. So the same process as before, the administrative team examined the same 10 options. They again had chart paper and they went around and listed the benefits and the considerations and had negotiations and conversations around each of the options. They did the same fist to 5 consensus building work that the word study team did, and they also worked to negotiate to 2 to 4 different options.
The difference then was we brought in the word study team members. So they got their list sort of narrowed down, and then the word study team members came and shared their recommendations, the same recommendations that you all just heard from them, including kind of a summary of their discussion. We stayed and answered some of the administrators' questions, and then we all left, and the administrators are here to talk about what happened after we left.
The process that we continued with was a short little meeting, about 5.5 hours. As we continued to talk through, you can tell, first off, the participants that were involved in the meeting. It was all of us as elementary principals. We also had Nicole Coons, Darcy Cousins, Jonas were involved in those conversations with us too. And so they were just as much a part of the conversation as the elementary principals. We obviously wanted to make sure that we were honoring the work that had been done by the word study team. We had lots of great conversations, a lot of negotiations, and some learning on our part about the whole process, what we felt was so important. We knew that we needed to have that multi-sensory systematic phonics instruction piece with whatever we were looking at. And so we continued to have conversations around what that brainstorming could look like. We had to have that common scope and sequence, the assessments, all of those pieces had to be included in our work. And so we then put the two together and looked at, it was option H and J, and we started talking through their recommendations, the last two that they came up with, and had some more very good conversations around what that could look like in our buildings. I think it was H that we looked at. We had conversations about could we actually get those materials in a timely manner to make the decisions that we needed to. With J, we also looked at and said, that's still a year away. And we weren't very comfortable with making another year of status quo. And so we continued to have that piece. And so, Justin?
No, Stu covered most of it there. Yeah, it really was helpful. And the bottom line is we knew that the Word Work Study team had done the hard work, had spent a lot of time and effort in reading the research and really looking at things. And we certainly, while it was nice for us to go through those 10 options and this and that, just having them, some representatives come in and talk to us that day through some of their work and through their decision making, and be able to kind of both get on the same page. And we agree. We agree with the word study team and their conclusions. We understood that there was still some hiccups with the H and J, that they'd narrowed down to those two, but they weren't 100% sold on either one completely. And so we kind of talked through that, and we collectively took their responses and tried to come up with somewhat of a hybrid that's going to kind of meet the needs, because we knew it was a priority and it needed to get done, and we didn't want to wait forever, but we wanted to make sure it was quality work and that we really do make a good quality decision moving forward. And so that's kind of how we come up to the end. And I know that I'm just one building, but we did send emails out to the staff following the meeting that we had with the decision going forward, or the proposal going forward. And I know the feedback that I've gotten at Mitchell from our word study team has been very positive with the hybrid, if you will, that we come up, and they felt that you know, we were kind of stuck on H and J, but what we knew, it wasn't perfect, but we really like how you guys brought those two together and made it into a hybrid, and we were really satisfied with the results that you guys have come up with, and so that's been a positive. But I'm only speaking of Mitchell because that's all I've spoken to, but it really was a good day for us to collaborate as principals to kind of get caught up on things. We share the same beliefs as a word study group, even though we haven't gone as depth in the research aspect of it, and we certainly wanted to honor their work moving forward. And so it was good to get their input that day. So that's kind of where we're at.
So in terms of next steps, the administrators who were involved in that short conversation, as Sue said, that afternoon, or that morning rather, that rolled into the afternoon, they'll be gathering with instructional coaches as well as the PK2 word study team to select materials. So that material evaluation will occur during the months of August and September, and that group will also be establishing an evidence-based rubric on which to evaluate the materials. And right now I know that some of the word study team members are looking at other districts to see what they've done in that realm, because the AEA is telling us that a lot of districts, I don't know if it was most, but a lot of districts in the Heartland Area Education Agency are in similar positions to ours in terms of selection of materials. And so we're looking for expert input from reading experts around the state as well as other districts, with the intent of making a final decision in late October of what materials will be implemented, so that the the materials will arrive in the district around the winter break time, and then teachers can start utilizing those second semester. Of course, along with any materials, with any new strategies, there's a lot of professional development, which our teachers have been actively engaged in for a good number of years already prior to this. So in this fall, the PK2 teachers will study the research around word study. And then next spring in 2017, those teachers will study the materials, the scope and sequence, and the assessments, which, as you know, are part of our plan. And then next fall, a year from this fall, we'll implement fully. So second semester is more that opportunity to get to know the materials. The following year, full implementation with fidelity, including a program evaluation component to assess how well teachers are implementing in the classroom and holding that level of accountability for implementation. Then the 3-5, third through fifth grade word study team is going to kick into gear this coming fall. And they too will be studying the research around word study. And then in spring, second semester, they'll work to identify gaps and create recommendations. So they're going to start up where the K2 group or PK2 group left off. So the other element that will be going into place here in the next couple of weeks is Kathy and I are working on a place on our website where we will post weekly updates on where word study is. And because most of the staff at this table, except for the bookends here, are not on 12-month contracts. Everybody in the middle here is on teacher contracts, and so anytime that you find them working on any of these elements, it's because they have generously agreed to take from their summertime, and I know some of them have small children. Seen some of them in the building today, and so we really appreciate the work that they're doing when they're off contract and coming in to do some of this work. So if there are things going on, even though it slows down considerably in the summer because of contract issues, we will post something on that week and just say no updates this week, so that there's not, did something happen? Did they forget to post? We will post weekly something that says that there's no update if in fact there's none. And then the communication protocol will be to board members first, staff second. Actually, those are probably going to most likely come at about the same time. And then it will go to the website. So it won't go to the website until we've talked with staff and with the board in terms of what we're working to accomplish. So this has been a labor of love and dedication, and I want to thank all those people. Number one, the teachers for making the time out of their summer. the administrators who were involved in the conversation who really truly met for 5.5 hours. That's not an exaggeration, and we're not shortening it up or lengthening it. That was it. I timed it. So really a lot of dedication to get to this point and a lot more work ahead of us as well. So those are some of the key pieces. Anybody have anything?
I think it's also important to say that, yeah, it was a long meeting, but it was a really good meeting, a very informative meeting, and it truly, I don't think we'd have gotten to where we would have been without the word study and Aaron and Mary helping us out with that discussion and front loading some of that work that had taken place, because we really did want to make a good decision going into this. We understand the importance of this, and we want to do it right the first time. I will say that although it was 5 hours, whatever, we left. All of the administrators in there that were mentioned up there were in full agreement and support of this process moving forward. And we certainly would have stayed 8 hours if we needed to, had that not been the case. But we did get to a point with this hybrid that was proposed to you guys today that we all felt that we could all support this process moving forward. And so I think it's important to put that out there.
Can you just explain the hybrid again? I guess I lost track what that looks like.
Yeah.
Actually, let me take a crack at interpreting back what I heard, because I think it might answer your question. So it sounded to me like H and J are less about foundations, making sense of phonics, words their way. It's not about that. It's about how do we deliberate and find and execute what we're doing. So options H and J are about timing, and so the hybrid is sort of a split in the difference. So it's not about, and maybe you picked up on it, but it's not about which program we should use. I think the other thing I heard is that we're going to use the same program. So we better choose wisely, because we're going to sink or swim all with the same one. So that was probably the revelation for me. The H and J programs were not in our board packet, so I was not tuned into the timing aspects of it. And so you can ask your question, and if you don't, then I got another one.
Sure, go ahead.
Well, that wasn't even a question, so this is like bonus coverage. So I get all of the rigor in this, and is there, what were your discussions around going more quickly? Just saying, you know what, come on, we've been at this, let's go. This measuring of pace, I appreciate. I'd just be curious to get some more light behind that.
Okay, sorry. I'll get it closer. Our discussion, when it came to the timing, it was hard with 30 people to get a real consensus, and we really didn't want to move forward if we didn't have a consensus. So there were some people on the team that were uncomfortable with moving that quickly and felt that they needed more time to really look at what's available before we make such a big decision. There were others on the team that felt like really strongly don't want to wait another year. That's why we were really split between the two plans. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, it does. I mean, anytime you try, when my wife and I try and draw a consensus, it's hard for two, let alone 30. So there'll always be those people that it can never go fast enough, and always those that it will always be.
Yeah, and I think all of us, though, in the room understood both concerns. I mean, there's some concerns with moving that quickly, and there's concerns with waiting a whole nother year. And that's why we were pleased with what the principals came up with.
Yeah. I kind of have a follow-up question related to that. How did the discussion, and it sounds like it happened in the word study group before it went to the principals, how did the original plan really focused on a pilot so that the decision ultimately that was going to be made or is going to be made was going to be based on data from the different grade levels and individual schools? So that's out of it. How did you get away from that and into just focusing on the actual programs?
Yeah, we did discuss that, and the issue of data came up. When it got right down to it, though, there were a lot of us that felt strongly in the group that to do a pilot for some people means switching what they're doing currently, and then possibly switching it again the next year or whenever we decide. And we felt strongly that that would not be best for students. And so with the learning that we've done around word study and the components that need to be in place, we thought that we could evaluate something based on what we can see available and what we know needs to be part of the program.
So did the gap analysis that you have done already, did that basically give you, or do you feel that that gave you enough data to move forward? Is that?
Yes, we did.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
I think the other thing to note there is that the decision, we're working on developing a rubric that will have some of those pieces put in place so that we can have some objective criteria based on the research and based on people, other literacy experts in the state that we're going to consult with around what needs to be on this rubric. It will include the research the word study team dug into. Does it have the components that the research said that it really needs to have? So we will have a rubric with a score that will give us some sort of quantifiable evaluation piece.
I think some of another piece of this that might help the board and everyone else understand is the work study group had done an awful lot of work before this even became, let's put it, known. And part of that was a gap analysis. And you identified phonics and the multi-sensory instruction that's associated with it as the basic gap that we see in our current literacy plan. And from here, it has just kind of come to this point where we're really trying to find the best thing to fill that gap. We may find something that might help us or enhance what we're already doing too, but that was really the impetus behind all of this. So you've done a lot of work and surveyed a lot of data to bring us up to this point.
So grades 3 through 5 will follow sort of a year behind this. Is it reasonable to conclude, you know what, if we choose X program for K2, that we just continue that for 3-5? Is that even a possibility, or is that so starkly different that it really requires the same process?
It'll be a similar process, but generally speaking, and underscore the word generally, by the time you get to third grade, that emphasis on phonics is starting to dwindle off. So it doesn't mean that third, fourth, fifth graders, or sometimes even older kids, don't need some phonics instruction, but that generally is not the emphasis. So we're anticipating a shift in the gaps that need to be filled in most likely.
So the reason to stagger that is just you can only eat so much at any one time, and pre-K2 has got to be the focus right now for this.
It's because it's a tremendous amount of work, and because these two ladies have other responsibilities and other content areas. If literacy was the only thing that they did, we could do them simultaneously, but it's really a work balance type of question as opposed to is there another reason to break that? And really the most pressing need was at the K2, PK2 level.
Can we go, you start.
Go ahead.
I want to go last.
I'm not going to let you. So just a point of clarification for me, because I want to make sure I'm correct in this. So you have essentially 2 points of a material evaluation. You've got the initial to identify, I'm guessing, the August, September, these are the materials that we're going to do a more in-depth study within our district. And so we're going to identify that, and like we have heard some thrown out in the past, but we're kind of going back to the drawing board, looking at all of that. Maybe that's where you use your evidence-based rubric. And then you're going to come back then again, because I think I've read in some of our materials that we're going to be having, you'll be visiting with individuals from those, representing those sets of materials, and then you'll do that second evaluation. I'm seeing shakes of head, so maybe that's, you want to expand on that? So we're.
I think that the initial selection, Mary and I have been trying to contact as many reps as we can that meet, I would say, most of the criteria that the word study team has evaluated in their research. So we're trying to widen the net of things that we're looking at, programs we're considering to bring in. We are going to again, these are loose plans, but our idea here is that we would bring in everything, as many as we could, that the team would look at, and we would have a much more condensed version of the rubric that people could kind of say, yes, I want to hear more about this. No, it's not worth investigating. And then we could invite those reps in so that we have a more narrow focus that more people have gotten a chance to weigh in on. Yes, we want to see this in more detail. No, we don't want to see this in more detail. So I'm going to let Mary finish because
You did a good job, but I wanted to add in the point that I think having more out on the table for people to look at to start with, I think we've seen that makes good sense. It makes sense to be open and here we're getting everything we can get our hands on. We're going to bring it in, let you see what's out there, what's available, the things that you really feel like align with not only our philosophy of how we do business here in Ames, what we know about research, what we know about good practice, which one's best aligned that we want to dig in further, and then bring those reps in. Because I think from what we've seen, there's some programs out there that have a lot of the pieces that we know are important, that are multisensory, that allow for differentiation, that use explicit instruction. And then there are some that aren't as strong in those areas. But I think it makes sense to have everything out there for everyone to see, everyone feel comfortable with what we narrow it down to before we bring the reps in. Did you want to add something?
And one of the ideas that we've been kind of tossing around here in the last week or so is, knowing that there's a lot of interest in what the word study team is going to move forward on, is that either at a board meeting or perhaps a teaching and learning committee meeting, just have those reps come in, and that way we can have more people involved in hearing what the reps have to say about their products. So that way it could be available, that those presentations, once they get narrowed down, could be available for more people who might be interested. And I know that teaching and learning committee in particular probably has a high level of interest, and so that's one possibility.
So good question, but I want to follow up just to make it really clear to everybody and clear to me. We're basically wiping the slate clean, and to use the programs, the original plan was we were going to focus on Words Their Way, Making Sense of Phonics, and Foundations. We're kind of just wiping that away, and now we're bringing other programs to the table possibly, right?
To say we're wiping the slate completely clean, I think is probably not quite accurate in the sense that
They're still there, but I mean...
We're going to add to it.
Right.
But I would also, and I can't remember if you guys said this or not, but the principals and the administrators who were involved in that 5.5-hour meeting took Making Sense of Phonics off the table because of the teacher-created materials, and we weren't sure that we could purchase things quickly enough to fill in some of those gaps. And I think that that's my recollection on how that transpired. So,
okay.
That's off the table, but
Right.
otherwise, the other two programs are still up for discussion.
So a program such as, because there are lots of others out there, so a program such as Project Read, which also is multisensory and addresses many of the things that are going to be in your rubrics, I'm sure, are going to be part of the material evaluation during that time frame.
It's important to remember that we're not going to consider any comprehensive reading programs. So we're not looking for something to fill the whole 90-minute lit block. That's not at all, or the writing block. We're not looking for that. So programs that only address foundational skills, the supplemental programs, those are the things we're going to be looking at. So we're not looking to cover all 5 areas or components of reading in a program for this particular purpose. We're just looking to do those foundational skills in word study, because we already have a lot of good instruction happening around comprehension and some of the other areas of reading. We're specifically focusing on that gap that the word study team identified.
And one other piece that I just want to throw out there is the Making Sense of Phonics is a book that we decided as an administrative team had to be a part of our professional development moving forward. And so to say that it's being wiped away, it is going to be utilized for all of our K-2 staff to make sure that's a part of their foundation, that they have an understanding of what that phonics instruction needs to make sure that it includes.
Can we go back to the slide, word study team recommendations? Yeah, wow, that was quick. How'd you know that? The, first off, we need that one sent back out to us because that one was blank in our packet, which I would like to have the final copy with that. The one thing I was thinking about, because I know when the option was Plan A, which was, I think it was Plan A, it might have been Plan B, which was a building-by-building pilot program. I think that was Plan A originally. I mean, I understood the reasoning behind that. I don't think that it excludes, when you were talking about that, you talked about trusting the expertise of the word study team to review and select materials. I don't think that those two things have to be exclusive. I mean, if we would have done a building-by-building pilot, we still would have been entrusting you to judge that pilot and come back to us with the recommendation, just in a different way. And so I was, I could see being supportive of that plan, and I liked it when it was written up. I will say I like the reasoning behind everything that you've said tonight. I wrote down a bunch of different questions. You guys have answered most of them, which is making me really happy. The one, giving the reasoning on not being happy with a year of status quo. I mean, I like the idea of spending the fall reviewing this and getting the decision made. I think you were well reasoned in doing that. The criteria part on how you will base this decision, how far along is that process, and what's a reasonable expectation for us to see that?
It's not very far along. I'll be honest with you. We've started just looking at some of the major pieces that we would want to evaluate on the rubric. We haven't broken out into what the scale would be or how we would start to identify those. When we met with the principal team on June 2nd, that was one thing that they reiterated, that it would be important to have something that was quantifiable, something that we could really hang our hats on a number, or something that took a little bit more of the emotion out of it and looked at just raw data. We have talked, Aaron and I have just talked loosely about reaching out to resources around the state in how we do this and what the rubric could look like, looking at what other districts have used. And we've also talked with the administrative team, said they wanted to be part of that creation of the rubric and they wanted to have a voice in it. So I would anticipate that Aaron and I would develop something after we kind of look around and see what's out there, and then bring it to the whole team, the administrative team, the word study team, probably the instructional coaches as well. They will all be involved in the selection. So that will be part of it. So the timing on that, it won't be this summer. I wouldn't think it would be probably tricky to get it done this summer, but as soon as possible in the fall.
Yeah, I think that the other thing to add there is that in the administrative team, I don't remember who said it, somebody said they really were passionate about having consensus in the word study team, the coaches and the administrators, that this is the tool that we all agree to use and live by. So that it's important for us to take that tool as we develop it through that consensus building process again. And we need it before we can bring anything into judge. So our idea is, I think August was our fingers crossed, hopefully we can get everybody pulled back together. Once it gets closer to the start of the school year, it'll be easier to bring the word study team back together. As it is in July, it will be difficult.
Well, I think I'll speak for myself. I'm just going to project that on all you guys. I won't do that. For me as a board member, I mean, that continuity amongst the buildings is incredibly important. I believe there are some things that we have going on in the district where we don't have that, and I want to see more of that. I do think that it's very important, and especially in this case, more so than the other ones where we don't have the continuity. This one, we fundamentally need this amongst all of our buildings, and so I do want to, I commend you for that part. Getting that consensus amongst all the teachers. I mean, Principal Jeffs mentioned that the principals were all had that consensus, and how do you, if we don't have that right from the start, how is that going to get built in? I mean, what are we, if there are people that aren't happy with the decision, how does that get done? I don't in an operation this big, in my operation where I work, when I make a decision, there's consensus instantly because we're a small operation. I mean, you've got a very large operation, and how do you build that among all the teachers?
That is an excellent question and obviously a difficult answer. And a lot of times it just takes time. And with our rapid pace on this particular revision to the plan, it's really going to be a push to build that level of consensus. But honestly, quite frankly, if I would bet on anybody to be able to pull it off, this is the group. I would add that. I have tremendous faith in them. But on the flip side of it, sometimes consensus doesn't always happen. So it's just a matter of we're going to have to move forward even if we don't have that level of consensus because, again, one of the commitments from the Word Study team was the fact that we're losing children while we wait and change our mind and change our plan and whatever. We can't continue to do that. So we need to move forward. And honestly, the building principals are key in helping ensure implementation with fidelity once the decision is made.
And my hope too would be based upon the research we do, it would build us a sense of consensus of this is where we need to go. So I guess I'm looking forward to this matrix of how you put that together. I'm also interested in when you bring in experts from the outside, when you talk to other school districts, how that all weighs into this matrix. Because I respect all of you as professionals. I really appreciate everything you do. But I want to try to grab as much data as we can from outside sources to help us come to a good decision. So my one question, and speaks to a lot of the people that are here, is how do we look to keep stakeholders involved throughout this process? So I know, Mandy, you talked about, well, we'll have updates on the website, but say, I think we function very well in our committee structure. So I think running this through TLC as often as we can is a wise thing. How do we either engage stakeholders, parents in this process? Is it through building principals? I mean, they're the ones most directly connected outside the emails we get and conversations we have. So I just want to make sure that we have everyone aware of meetings as well as what the best mechanism is for providing feedback.
Right. And as we move forward and we really establish exactly what some of these pieces look like in our planning process, I would say that, if we know that a particular event is taking place outside of, the committee structure where they have to have those open and honest conversations with each other, but then planning to build in sometimes when it can be a public meeting. So whether it's the teaching and learning committee and having reps come in there once that gets narrowed down, that way we can get, community members and family members who are interested have some input and some involvement. But again, the professionals will ultimately end up making a decision with the data and with input, but ultimately that will fall on the shoulders of the Word Study team, along with the administrators who are involved in that project.
Yeah. Mandy, could I just throw out an idea? You mentioned, actually, you brought it up about the representatives coming probably to the TLC committee, because I can't really see them coming to a board meeting.
I wondered about that too, but we want to throw out options.
But here's an idea. What we could do, since we'll hopefully by then have connections and all of our new bells and whistles over in the new administrative building, we could tape those.
Oh, absolutely.
And
I think that's a great idea.
You could just put them up on the website so that parents, others that, can't be there physically, or teachers and principals who can't be there, they can access that and see it firsthand, exactly, what was said and discussed, the questions that were back and forth during the meeting.
I think that's a great idea, because in our planning conversation on what the website element could look like, Kathy has an idea which goes to her expertise in the website design, and so that there would be places where we could probably upload some video. I made a note of that. I think it's a great idea.
Since Principal Jeffs mentioned that his feedback from his staff has been positive, I'd like, if any other principals would like to comment, or just collectively, it could be the 5-to-5 ratio from where you're at right now. But if any of you want to comment on positive, negative feedback, if there's been recommendations from teachers that would alter the HJ combination here, but please,
Go ahead,
you're the
Carol.
professionals, give us
Go
feedback.
ahead, Carol, you start.
Well, I think that when we talked about making sense of phonics and basically writing our own system, when we took that off the table, I did hear that that is a positive direction. That perhaps slowing down the train and really putting together the criteria before we choose the materials, that is an important piece, and that we need to together learn. I think all of us have levels of expertise in different areas, and in order for us to collectively make a good decision, we need to be learning together. So I felt like the feedback from my group was positive, in that we are going to use the same system. We need to, but we need to choose well. So we're glad that it's an urgent need now, and we're glad we kind of have a hybrid plan.
At Meeker, we sent the email out to the staff that just said what the hybrid was about, and I got a couple of emails that said, sounds good.
Well, at Edwards, we kind of got caught in the middle because we were on board with the first plan with buildings doing the pilot, and then we went to a different plan, and we were on board with the second plan. And so I didn't get any specific feedback from the email that I sent out, but I can tell you that our staff's ready to do whatever we need to do to move forward on it.
I would echo that. At Northwood, staff was very excited that we had come to consensus. I think that was the biggest hooray that I heard because there were several different plans going forward, and then they were happy that everyone came to consensus. I think the other thing that I heard from staff is that they were very appreciative that we were going to widen our scope and allow multiple different programs have a chance, so that it wasn't just pockets that were emerging and that was the plan. So really getting a more fair, equitable view of what's out there, and then what aligns to the research we've done, but then also what we know as we talk to experts is best practice. So all of those things really helped them feel really well about that, especially at the pre-K level, because it's the first time, what I've heard is they're really happy that we're part of this decision as well, so we can make sure that it's systemic and that we're feeding into elementaries, and so to make sure that we're starting them off right. So.
And as everybody kind of stated, I think the passion, you can tell, is very heavy in our buildings. Staff is very excited for the process. One thing that I also want to reiterate is everybody's very excited that the learning is going to happen too. It is not just give me something, it is we want to know why we are teaching phonics, why is it so important, so that we can make sure that we are advocating on behalf of this instruction, whether we're using this, or this. It just needs to be a part of what we do, and that's imperative that our staff feels that way. So we're very excited to be learning together, and I think that's one of the aspects that has everybody excited. All of us on the same page, talking the same language from building to building and across the district. So some great conversations are happening.
I just want to say one more thing. Having been a part of maybe some of the conversations that provided us the pause, and as a policymaker here, I want to first thank those of you that were on the Word team, study team, because my child had one of the people on the committee, and I know how difficult it was for her to leave her classroom to put in what I consider to be very important time, even though I wanted her in the classroom with my child. So I really appreciate the sacrifices that you made. I also appreciate the sacrifices all of the administration has made, because it was in a very busy time of year, and I would bet you probably just wanted to take a deep breath because you were through the school year. So I appreciate your due diligence in this, because I feel like we are on a path that we ought to be able to get there if we keep digging down and doing the hard work. So thank you very much. Appreciate it.
So is it fair to summarize that by saying then through the fall of this year, buildings will continue to either do what they've done or do what they will do in their in this work, and it's going to collide in a more common program second semester and next year, but building by building, they'll continue their work as they see fit in the area of literacy.
I think that's mostly true. I think because of the word study team's work that there might be some subtle shifts as the year starts. You know, when you've learned that much, you don't just go back and do what you always done. And I think, especially knowing so many members of the word study team as I do, they're not going to go back and implement the same because now they know more. So mostly yes, because of those reasons, Mike.
Any other discussion from the board? Great, thank you. All right, moving on to our next item tonight, board committee reports. Any updates from what was provided? All right.
I don't believe so, no.
We'll go on to our next item, the consent items. I'll take a motion.
Move approval of consent.
Second.
Moved by Rasmussen, second by Rosser. Discussion. Dr. Taylor?
Minutes of the regular meeting held on June 6, claims and payroll for 2016, and also financial reports for May. Both of those, the claims and payroll and the financial reports, are from May of 2016 from Chris. There is a personnel report and an addendum. Don't normally bring addendums to the board, but in this case, the real key, and I think it might help the board to understand, is that our building principals worked this last Thursday and Friday finishing up hiring. They found, of course, as we normally do, some very excellent staff for replacement. Those people are currently some of them are currently under contracts in other districts. They need to get out of their contract before we can issue one. And in many cases, some of them may even be still interviewing and may have other offers out there. So by bringing an addendum to the board tonight for your approval, that means that we can issue them a contract and bring them under our wing. So that may help you in understanding addendums in the future as they come to the board. We have gifts to the district, and oh my goodness, this might be something that Dr. Ross may want to help me explain just a little bit. I'm going to give it my very best shot. As you notice on there, we do have 24 cases of parchment paper from the Smith Machinery Company to the district, and a trumpet and recorder from Gail Johnston to the middle school band department. You'll also notice that there's cash in the amount of $10,148 to the Sawyer PTO. That incorporates $375 from the Story County Conservation, $2,303.57 from miscellaneous expenses, and $7,469.43 for field trips at Sawyer. Then the list. And I know Dr. Ross just had a tremendous time, but she was invited actually to our new neighbor's house. Not house, it was actually multi-residences. It's the Northcrest community. And during that visit, she received a very generous contribution from 98 members of the Northcrest community for $14,000 or over $14,000 in donations to the district homeless program. And I don't know, Doc, if you had anything you want to say that I might have missed, but I know you came back highly impressed, and so was I, at the generosity of our neighbors at Northcrest.
Sapelli had been over to Northcrest to talk about the homeless program, and honestly, as I talked to different people around the community, Sapelli's work in the community on behalf of our homeless students is extremely compelling, because that was what prompted this particular contribution. And so first Sapelli was supposed to go and receive this money, and she was moving to Mexico with her new husband, and then Jonas was supposed to go, and he ended up having a family emergency in Maryland, so I was next in line. I am third, and to that effect, I had an absolutely marvelous hour and 20 minutes at North Crest being presented with, I told them I was really highly paid because I came back. It was a $14,000 hour of my life. But the best part is the warmth of the people there and just the generosity. And it makes me really happy to call them my neighbors now in our new location on 24th Street.
And we will be sending out 99 separate cards of appreciation to those individuals. You'll also find a contract agreement in Exhibit C5 for the agreement with Grantwood AEA financial and personal management applications, and also Exhibit C6 on continuous open enrollment applications.
Mandy, do we know how that money may be targeted? Now that we're committing to it, I'm just curious.
Because Jonas hasn't been back long enough for me to connect with him to know what the targets are, I don't have a specific answer because there are about 137 kids that will be touched by those funds. So I want Jonas and Linda, who've both been negotiating with the Northcrest folks, to really make sure that it's used in the way that they intended it to be used. Not knowing exactly what Sapele's presentation looked like, I don't want to speculate too far to know, other than they asked for it to be used for the homeless program.
So I guess it might be nice if they were to give the presentation to us at some point, just so we know, again, at a high level, how that's being targeted.
I think that would be terrific. Great idea.
Presentation of the power of what this did, or
Yep.
somewhere down
And-
the line, what was the good that came of this? Because it's
Absolutely, because I would
amazing.
also suggest that Jonas, or depending on exactly who replaces Sapele, but at some point in time, I think it would only be fair to those folks who gave so generously to actually go over to North Crest and give them a similar presentation. So that is my recommendation.
Thank you.
Any other comments? All right, proceed to vote. All those in favor of the motion say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed say nay. Passes 5-0. Item 14.
I move the board approve the reappointment of district administrators, administrative assistants, technicians, and educational assistants on the attached lists for the 2016-2017 school year.
Second.
Moved by Rasmussen, second by Rosser. Discussion. Again, thank you for everyone's support. I think overall we're doing a great job as a district, and I really appreciate everyone's efforts. Proceed to vote. All those in favor of the motion say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed say nay. Passes 5-0. Item 15.
I move the board approve open enrollment applications beginning with the 2016-17 school year as presented.
Second.
Moved by Rosser, second by Franson. Discussion. Proceed to vote. All those in favor of the motion say aye.
Aye.
Those
Aye.
opposed say nay. Passes 5-0. Item 16.
I move the board approve substantial completion for the administration building portion of the 24th Street project by the following contractors: General Bid Package, HPC LLC, Mechanical Bid Package, Hudson Thompson Plumbing, Inc., and Electrical Bid Package, Van Manen Electric, Inc.
Second.
Moved by Esposito, second by Rasmussen. Discussion.
Are they coming on the punch list, Jerry?
I know, go ahead, Jerry, if you want, but I know Grant and Sam from Gila were there last Thursday and Friday going through the punch list items. There's a few things that are hanging out there yet. Before you get to that, I just want to tell the board that I think we've been promised the fiber from MediaCom to be turned over to us, whatever that means, tomorrow, is my understanding. So
Great.
we're very hopeful that we'll be able to have our first board meeting here in July, or up there on July 18th. Punch list items, Jerry.
Punch list, they've been doing pretty well. There's still a few outstanding items. I set a goal of trying to complete that by June 30th. I think it's achievable, with the exception of some of the HVAC equipment and controls. We've got some things that are coming out that we're shooting for mid-July. Hopefully be able to get it done by then. Then we have lighting controls in the boardroom and in the building. So we've got a technician coming in on the 27th. So we'll see how that goes. There's a couple things he needs to do to tweak that and finalize it and provide owner training. But so I'm hoping to be done by mid-July, and even to the point where I'd asked face-to-face, do you promise we'll be done, as much as you can get a promise?
Sure. Okay. Thank you.
I think one of the HVAC problems is the balancing, the existing new boardroom up there is about 68, and the offices around the outside are generally anywhere from 72 to 74. So there's got to get that balanced out, I think.
Yep.
Any other discussion? Proceed to vote. All those in favor of the motion say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed say nay. Passes 5-0. Item 17.
I move the board approve final acceptance of the work for the Dotson Drive roadway extension project in the total amount of $1,646,993.30.
Second.
Moved by Esposito, seconded by Rosser. Discussion. Seeing none, proceed to vote. All those in favor of the motion say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed say nay. Passes 5-0. Item 18.
I move the board approve the following change orders for the 24th Street project. Change order number 9 to the contract with HPC LLC in the amount of add $3,897. And change order number 7 to the contract with Van Manen Electric Inc. in the amount of add $1,315.
Second.
Moved by Esposito, seconded by Rasmussen. Discussion. Proceed to vote. All those in favor of the motion say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed say nay. Passes 5-0. Item 19.
I move the board approve the following change orders for the Fellows Project. Change order number 7 to the contract with HPC LLC in the amount of add $50,476. Change order number 7 to the contract with Van Manen Electric Inc. in the amount of add $6,802.64. Change order number 8 to the contract with Brockway Mechanical and Roofing Company, Inc. in the amount of add $1,666.82. And change order number 1 to the contract with A1 Geothermal, Inc. in the amount of add $3,990.
Second.
Moved by Esposito, seconded by Rosser. Discussion.
Just peering through this, looked like the big thing for us was adding sod. That consumed the largest chunk of this, and we know what our success is in growing grass and get it to grow quickly. So I'm sure, while I wasn't at the facilities meeting where we reviewed this, I'm sure that was a request that we made, not one that was somehow mishandled in the drawings.
And if I recall, the pricing was pretty good too on that. So
We're originally thinking as high as 50 to 60,000. So again, we scored.
One question, I wish I'd have thought of this earlier. I'd emailed it out just to clarify this. I just don't recall, we contracted directly on the geothermal? Or should that be part of somebody else's contract? It was, okay.
So when we did, as I recall, like when we did the site development package, we had one for the dirt, site utilities, and the grading was a package, and the well field was a separate package.
Okay.
Yep.
So it wasn't quite like Mitchell where we separated out 14 different ways. We just separated out.
Correct.
Okay. I did. Thank you.
any further discussion? Proceed to vote. All those in favor of the motion say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed say nay. Passes 5-0. Item 20.
I move the board approve the following change order for the Mitchell project. Change order number 10 to the contract with Manning Seibert Mechanical Contractor, Inc. in the amount of deduct $1,334.61.
Second.
Moved by Esposito, seconded by Franson. Discussion. Proceed to vote. All those in favor of the motion say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed say nay. Passes 5-0. Item 21.
I move the board approve the following change order for the Sawyer project. Change order number 7 to the contract with All Pro Electrical Technology, Inc. in the amount of add $6,850.38. Change order number 7 to the contract with Manning Cyber Mechanical Contractors, Inc. in the amount of add $458.14. And change order number 8 to the contract with Woodruff Construction LLC in the amount of add $30,471.
Second.
Moved by Esposito, seconded by Rosser. Discussion. Proceed to vote. All those in favor of the motion say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed say nay. Passes 5-0. Items on the board. Jerry, could you, I guess, give the board just an update on how things are going with all the facilities this summer? I know we talked about facilities, but I think it'd be good for the public and the board to know how things are coming.
Well, the big emphasis here this summer was moving fellows out of the old building into the new building, and we were able to successfully move them in one day. We had the furniture liquidation garage sale then the following day. I think we reported last meeting about the success of that furniture liquidation process. The asbestos abatement was able to start one day early, and they finished 2 days early. So they were completed by Saturday, June 11th. So we were able to get the demolition permit on the 13th, and they've started demolishing fellows. So far, they've gotten the south wing, and they're up the east side of the interior portion of the gym is exposed. When I was driving up here, I noticed that, and you probably drove by too. So they're making pretty good progress. I'm hoping that this building will come down a little bit easier than Meeker did, because it's got bar joists and deck roof rather than a concrete, so that should take less time to crunch up and dispose of. So they're moving along. Inside the building, we've got teachers are moved in. Furniture deliveries were beginning today, and so we'll start setting up furniture at Fellows and Sawyer here for the next 4, 5, 6 weeks. So that's underway and that's in progress. Fellows is still going to be touch and go because of the amount of earthwork we need to do and get ready for getting the parking lot. We'll probably take a similar approach to be able to make sure that we can get one lane in and be able to create the parent drop-off and then proceed with that as we go through to finish up the parking lot. 24th Street, the administration building is completed and occupied. Some little nuisance punch list items, but we're pushing hard to be able to get those completed. As far as the ball fields, they were able to plant the grass in the outfields, both baseball and softball competitive fields, and that's starting to grow. The irrigation system is up, so they'll be able to keep that watered, and we should expect that to get a good growth. The bleachers are up around the baseball fields, and they're continuing to finish up the work in fencing, grading, some concrete work. They'll be able to do the landscaping, get the rest of the seating in. The seating will ultimately end up on the majority of the site. We'll go in this fall, so they'll be doing some stabilization in the meantime. Expect to see activity up there through the end of July, and hope to be able to get a punch list out then, and we can push to be able to get that completed here before the school year starts. Sawyer's moving along pretty well also. We've got punch lists developed, or the architects, engineers walked through here in the last couple weeks to get these punch lists. The contractors are working to wrap those up. And again, we're trying to establish some goals for being able to complete the punch list. We have HVAC items, testing and balancing and commissioning will kind of linger on. But Story Kenworthy is there. We've got most of the furniture already moved into Sawyer and storage, so they're going to work here within the next 4 to 6 weeks to distribute that and get the furniture set up. Site work's essentially done. Playground equipment was delivered today, and they'll be back here later this week to do the assembly of the playground equipment at Sawyer. Meeker, water issues continue. I'm getting more optimistic in my old age, but haven't given up yet. We hit it a couple times more last week. I've got a sanitizing, a food grade sanitizer product that we're putting in, and just getting from as early as we can to be able to encompass all the areas that we've received present results for tests for bacteria. The window replacement at Meeker is moving along really well. They expect to be finished this week, so we'll be able to continue cleaning the building and getting it ready for the August start of school.
Yeah.
What else we got? Is that about it?
Sounds like a lot.
When will they, on your facilities planning and management bus storage facility, you have any idea when they may be getting after that in earnest on Bell Avenue?
Well, we'll get the contract approved tonight, so they'll be ready to start. I think they're anxious to start, so we'll kick that off with the pre-construction meeting and start getting things in order. There's contracts that need to get prepared, purchase orders get developed. They'll have to develop a schedule and do some of the paperwork. So I'm hoping within a couple weeks. That might be a little bit optimistic. I usually give it about 2 weeks before they're going to hit the site, but we'll see how that goes here. I'll know more later.
Congratulations, Jerry. You've done a great job for us.
Thank you.
Since we're talking about all that, what, on Mitchell, do we still have contracts outstanding? How many? What, we're 14 total, we have 4?
We have 4, according to Steve.
Okay.
Do you know who they are right off the top of your head, Steve?
2 with TK Concrete, Manning Cyber, and Edge. So Manning Cyber's mechanical, with a few little final things on the mechanical commissioning list that we're trying to get wrapped down. And I think Edge is very, very close. I think we're down to the hardware item with them, aren't we, Jerry?
1 screw? Yeah, I think so.
So we're very close. TK, I think, got most of their stuff cleaned up too, so we're very close to having the last of it wrapped up.
Thank you.
Other items from the board.
I was happy to see so many people here again tonight. It's much more interesting to have the people following what we're talking about and have the input and you know, it's nice to have that dialogue with parents. I mean, ultimately, it's all for, you know, the good of all the kids, so it's nice to hear from them.
I just want to thank the board for our discussion last Monday night with City Council. I thought it was fruitful in the sense that we've kind of we're very willing to reach out and figure out what's best for the community. So I guess I encourage board members to continue talking with council members, continue to talking with community members to find a solution. So I know there's one out there, and we'll work at that. So again, thanks for your openness and honesty as we had that discussion. Items from staff.
I think I might piggyback a little bit on what Tim said, and just for clarification, because I kind of get this impression that there are people that think that our staff they're not teaching literacy. And we actually have been doing a marvelous job with that. They're not going to change their core instruction during this fall. They're not going to change their core instruction or the autonomy that they have as professionals ever. What we are looking for is a gap or a means to stop a gap that we happen to see that our professionals happen to discover relative to phonics instruction. And I think that's important to remember. It's not like we haven't done anything. There's never been anything there. Our staff has been knocking it out of the park over the last 100 years probably. But I just wanted to throw that out and make sure that people were clear on that. A second thing, I might piggyback a little bit off of what Luke said too. We do have a closed session on the agenda, but I don't think that that's absolutely necessary at this point. We had a good discussion, and I think during the meeting with the city council. And in my opinion, I think between Luke and I, our task before us is pretty well set in trying to get our RFPs out and get people who are interested in our particular buildings to get information to us so that we can share it with the board and with neighborhoods on what those interested parties plan on doing with those properties prior to sale. So I guess that's a little piece of good news for you. A second part that's also associated with our literacy planning and what we're doing is that I wanted to update the board and let you know that due to a lack of funding, they have delayed the implementation of Smarter Balanced as a statewide assessment, and they have also delayed the 3rd grade retention requirement that we had. And I just wanted to make sure that our board of directors was on track with that. We do have a facilities meeting on July 13th, and Mike, we may meet before that, depending on how things shake down here a little bit. And I think the other piece and last piece of really good news, I hope for the board, is that this is most likely the last live broadcast from Ames High School of a school board meeting. And we were doing it here when I showed up in the district 25 years ago. So I don't know how many years before that they were doing, but I don't feel like Johnny Carson or anything, like I'm signing off on this, because we're going to come back in a much better facility. Maybe we can stop the squeak in the microphones and other things that are associated with that. But thousands of hours of board work took place here in front of the public over the years. And so it's kind of a neat feeling. We're going up to a much nicer facility. We will have an open house on that night on July 18th and a ribbon cutting at 5 o'clock. Even though the chamber doesn't do ribbon cuttings on a Monday, they're going to let us have the ribbon cutting materials. We'll do it ourselves. But thanks to the chamber for allowing us to have those materials. With that, I think I am complete.
So just to confirm that again, so it's July 18th?
July 18th.
At 5 o'clock?
5 o'clock.
5.
Ribbon cutting and then an hour and a half of open house, and then encourage all the people to stick around for our first board meeting there.
If they'd sure like to, we'd love to have them there.
Great.
He said they're going to give incentives for people to stick around.
Good.
Anything else from the board? All right, I'll take a motion to adjourn.
Move to adjourn.
Second.
Moved by Franson, second by Rosser. Discussion? Proceed to vote. All those in favor of the motion say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed say nay. Passes 5-0. We're adjourned.